Yo, pull up a chair, let the real talk begin. Faith on the table where the brothers lock in. Life gets heavy, but we stand our ground. Truth in the room when the circle comes round. No mask, no front, just real man here. Talking about faith through the doubt and the fear. From the grind of the week to the lessons we share. Welcome to the men's round table, pull up a chair. Men's round table series, step inside. Real men, real faith, where the truths collide. Voices at the table where the stories get shared. Welcome to the men's round table. Pull up a chair.
Welcome back to the Men's Roundtable Series Interview Spotlight. I'm your host, Mr. U. Wherever you are and how you're watching this show, thanks for making us part of your week. We're live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. Of course, you can find all 4 of our shows across all social media platforms, and of course, on every podcast listening platform. However you get your podcast, you can find our work there. So thanks for tuning in today. As you guys may not know, this show is kind of the sister show to our Men's Roundtable Series podcast, our genuine safe space for men every Thursday night at 7 p.m. EST. If you're a husband, father, brother, or son, you are invited to that. Definitely won't be on stage perhaps, but you'll definitely be in the chat. Love to hear your comments and questions, add to the conversation. It's a safe space that we built just for you guys, so you're definitely invited. Today we have a very special guest. He's a men's coach, a somatic facilitator, and the co-founder of MELD, health and education organization, helping men get out of their heads and into their bodies. We got Duncan Rich in here with us today. Duncan, how are you?
I'm doing well. How's it going? Thanks for having me.
It's good, man. The pleasure's mine, man. Good to have you here, man. You got a lot of context for what we're going to be talking about today, man. You're multi-talented, you're multiverse, and I definitely want to take this time to get into a lot of what you're doing, man. But you're a father and you're a husband, and you deal with what men are dealing with, stress, trauma, helping them kind of deal with their emotions, things like that. Yeah. Why do you feel like, because as men, I think we deal with more than what the world around us says that we deal with, or what we think. We're more complex than people will give us credit for. Why did you decide that you wanted to be a men's coach when you know for yourself, if you're being honest, all the magnitude of what you have to deal with as a man? Why did you decide, you know what, I want to be in a bigger position to actually coach other men? I'm dealing with so much myself. Why did you decide to make that move?
Well, I essentially needed it myself when I was first sort of starting out, or, maybe 10, 12 years ago, my life slowed down a lot. I moved out of New York City into the Catskill Mountains. And when I did that, having the quiet and having the solitude, like real aloneness, not like someone on the other side of the wall, but like real alone, like no solitude, one is around. Yeah. And quiet. And I started feeling these layers of myself that I hadn't really accessed before, I've been kind of moving too fast and sort of keeping it that way on purpose, by accident, on purpose, kind of like unintentionally, but also subconsciously, intentionally, just keeping it moving and not really slowing down and moving. Something happens. Okay, well, all right, well, on to the next thing. And then when I started slowing down, some of these things were like, hey, what about that? And I felt this gap between who I really was, and like who I wanted to be or how I thought about myself. And I wanted to at least close that gap a little bit. And I started looking around for resources for me that felt like they were talking to me. And I found a lot of stuff that felt really, that was saying stuff that I liked, but felt like it was talking to women. It felt very feminine, and there's nothing wrong with that. It just didn't feel like it was talking to me. And then some of the stuff that I did find that was by men or for men, like that also didn't really resonate with me. A lot of sort of just more sort of man up kind of stuff.
Sure.
And I just felt like there was something else that needed to be addressed. And a friend of mine went to this event and brought back with him the work of the man who became my mentor, my teacher, Owen Marcus. And it's very body based. Like we're men, we are very physical, we're very action oriented. And this process that my buddy brought back, that I ended up sort of really diving into and studying and now offer, is it starts with the messages of the body. So like when you have an experience, first you have a physical experience, your body reacts, and then you have an emotional experience, and then you have a cognitive intellectual experience. So the body is kind of on the front lines, but we are dictating everything from the mind. Like we're thinking about it, and we are deciding. And it's amazing that we have that ability to do that, where a lot of other animals on the planet don't operate that way. But we can also get tripped up in the mind because our stories live there, our beliefs live there, our past like stress and traumas and all that kind of stuff lives there. And so I got into trying to figure out a way to offer this work to a broader audience of men, because I felt like there's a big missing piece out there for people who are like just regular guys who are looking to feel better. And when we address like stress and trauma, where it's sometimes like, yeah, it is like really focused traumatic events, but then there's also like just the stress of life, like regular life, of family, of culture, of just the way that things are, and that stuff kind of gets like passed over, like, oh, that's just how the way life is. But if you think about it, like we weren't born this way, we learned a lot of this stuff along the way, so we can unlearn some of it and get back to some of that that truth that we kind of lost along the way from the stress and trauma of just life and culture and family and things like that. And so I as a man, I also feel like well positioned to speak to men versus trying to tell women how women need to work and how they need to be. There are very real chemical, biological differences in the way men live, in the way men function, in the way we work, in the way our bodies work, in the way we process information, in the way that we grow. So there are really marked differences, and I just felt like better positioned to address those as a man because I live them.
It makes a lot of sense, man. What do you think are the current problems? Let's just say the problems with the current paradigm, if you will, about how to be a man.
The current paradigm feels just extremely limited. It feels very narrow. There's not a lot of options, and there's not a lot of different pathways that are like acceptable for men to pursue, especially when it comes to the things that are getting in our way. It's most of it is just power through, man up, suck it up, and don't let it get in your way. Don't let it get in the way of achieving, and don't let it get in the way of your accomplishments. But that's got a very limited usefulness. Like there are things that are embedded in your nervous system. You're not choosing this stuff. It's just how you have been shaped, or how we have been shaped. And if we don't get in there and make those unconscious, patterns conscious and bring them to the surface and look at them, then they're just running our lives. And that's why a lot of us feel like we're kind of adjacent. We're kind of next to who we want to be. We can see him, and, we feel him sometimes, but most of the time, we're like trying to get there. And when you slow down and you get into your body, then you become present, and you get to sort of unite with this person, this idea of who you want to be, and you get to see what's really there. And a lot of times what's really there is, there's some discomfort, and then you get to address it. You get to like look at that stuff at least and process it. So it, this stuff from when you're 3, 4, 5 years old isn't still controlling your life and the way that you operate and how you relate to people and your relationships, and your work and everywhere.
That makes sense. Before we get into some of your work, I've noticed a pattern when people, when they join our show or I watch them on other shows, either one applies. They're on this mission, but I always want to get into why of the mission. What about the things that you deal with other men, trauma, addiction, those kind of things are part of your personal journey you can share as the reason that kind of shape the work that you're doing with the men at MELD. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I grew up, I love my parents. They're great people. They did a really great job. And I still feel like there was something missing for me. And this is not their fault. Like I'm not blaming them. I'm not blaming, it's no one's fault. It's like this systemic thing that it's the water that we're all swimming in. So I left home, when I was 18, and I kind of set out to do my own thing. And I, got into just a lot of numbing, a lot of drugs, a lot of alcohol, a lot of addiction, in different capacities, like attention stuff, like where I put my attention and what I was avoiding, and doing a lot of drugs and exploring in a certain sense, but also like running in another sense. And in a way I was kind of looking for this initiation into like, who am I when my sort of control is removed, when the things that are usually running my system aren't operating the way that they normally do. And now it's not like a very healthy or sound way to go about doing that, but that's ultimately what I was trying to do. And after a good amount of that, I recognized that like, hey, this is really destructive. This isn't the way that I want to be going. This is self-destructive. But the thing that I'm chasing is still legitimate. The thing that I'm going after, this kind of, deeper knowing of myself and getting closer to these truths, I'm allowed to do that. And that feels like the right thing to be doing. I just wasn't doing it in, the best way.
That makes sense.
And I had to kind of trip along that road for a little while, stumble in order to sort of be like, okay, yeah, this isn't it. But like, what is it? Like, where do I go? And it's really hard when we don't have a model for what to do, other than just kind of, just go to the gym and work it out there. And there's nothing wrong with going to the gym, but those can't be the only muscles that you try to develop,
Come on. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Now, one of the things that I notice in men's groups, and maybe you see it too as a coach and being active part of men's groups, is the whole vulnerability question. That word seems to send chills down some men's spine.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
What would you say is a misconception that men have about this word, and how do you address it in the work that you're doing with men?
Yeah, that's a great question. So vulnerability, that's kind of that's on the flag of the dominant paradigm that we have right now, is like vulnerability equals weakness. And that's kind of, that's the narrative, because we associate it with like war or football or just, losing,
Yeah.
but there's a different kind of vulnerability. Like, yes, vulnerability in battle is not where you want to, is not, you don't want that. But there's,
Of course.
but we need to also sort of, when we're not in battle, we need to down regulate and recognize that we're not in battle. And vulnerability allows for a lot wider spectrum of awareness and and of experience. So vulnerability is strength. Vulnerability, it takes a much stronger man to get vulnerable about the things that are actually holding him back, that are in his way, than it does to just keep repressing them and work it out and keep punching through everything and be that hammer and have everything as a nail and just kind of, and there's a time for that. There's a time to punch through, that's an important thing. It can't be the only tool in our tool belt. So, we have a practice, we call it assertive vulnerability. It feels risky to be honest about what's really happening right now. So you lean into that risk and you are undoing this pattern. You're undoing this sort of physical obstacle that you have to, accessing this truth by being vulnerable and being like, oh man, I'm really scared to say this right now. I'm really scared to be sitting here, but here's something that's true for me. And being able to be seen and to have that truth be received by other people, and getting whatever feedback comes, and not necessarily like wavering and like, oh, that was too much for you. Okay. I've been in a lot of rooms where I've been vulnerable and people have just been like, oh God, like this is so uncomfortable. And there's also been a lot of people that are like, wow, that's really brave. And it takes courage to, and it's not just about what other people think, but that's how it feels when you are being vulnerable. It's courage, it's strength. So the big misconception is that all vulnerability is weakness, when actually, vulnerability like within yourself can give you just so much of what you are looking for.
Yeah, I like that. That's a tough word for a lot of people, but honestly, we are stronger when we own up to what's going on inside of us. It's the weak person that tries to cover and hide.
Yeah.
I think a
Do
lot
both.
of men don't understand that. Don't understand that. So
you can do both.
You can definitely. I'd love to ask this final question and have you kind of speak to our audience, specifically our husbands, fathers, brothers, and sons in this regard, because I know they're watching and listening either live now or on the replay. And I want them to hear your answer to this, and then we'll have you let folks know where they can find your work, and then we'll go ahead and close the broadcast out. What do you think are challenges that men face today that you feel are not addressed by the typical normal means, whether it be therapy, whether it be specific social media accounts or mainstream medias or gurus that supposedly help people with this kind of stuff? What do you think are challenges that men face today that are not being addressed enough?
Oh man, so many. But I think what feels kind of like the main one that underpins a lot of this stuff is the role of the body, the role of the nervous system. You can go to therapy, and therapy is great. It's great for a lot of people, and for a lot of people, it's very helpful. And I go to therapy. It's a great avenue to explore. When you are talking about your problems and you are just kind of going over the issues again and again, your body experiences those issues again to a certain degree. So there is a component that is potentially re-traumatizing yourself. And you can go to therapy, you can understand what is wrong. You can know where it came from. Like, oh, well, you know, I was neglected, or I was abused, or, you know, I didn't get what I needed in whatever way. You can even know what you need to do about it. You can know what you need to do about it, and still that pattern will control your life. And still you won't be able to overcome. You'll keep hitting that same wall. And the reason you keep hitting that same wall is because the answer, or the pattern that is continually pushing you down the same path, that is a nervous system pattern. At one point when you were young, you had an experience that was too big for you to process, and left unprocessed, you started feeling this discomfort of having this unresolved and unprocessed, but you can't really do anything about it. Either you don't have the agency, you don't have the safety, or you don't have the skills, or all of that. And so this thing in you keeps reminding you in your body that it's painful, it's uncomfortable. And so what we do, instead of addressing it, because we don't have the skills or tools or safety to do that, we turn away from the entire system of communication. And so we stopped listening to the signals of our body, which, as I said, are on the front lines of our experience. The body speaks a different language. The body speaks the language of experience. The mind speaks in the language of analysis. So you exit the realm of the experience in order to have the analysis of it, but the pattern exists in the experience. And those are the levels that somatic work, body-based work. Somatic, soma means body. Somatic just means of the body. And so those are the layers that the somatic work gets to address.
Thank you for much coming here and kind of shedding some light on some things, because we feel stuff and we don't understand all the way feeling, and you definitely seem to have a handle on that. Let folks know where they can find your work. I have the site that we have up on the screen for those that are watching, but for those that are listening, they may need to hear that. Go ahead.
Yeah. You can find us on Instagram, meld.men. You can find us on the web. It's meld.community. You got the link for our core program, which is, you know, one of our sort of introductory programs. We do a lot of teaching. We do a lot of sort of explaining what's happening in your body under stress. It's based in decades of research, science, of neuroscience, neurobiology. And then we practice. We get into the experiential layers of what it's like for you, and we use your nervous system and your specific story, and you get to do the work. So it's not just teaching and then you go try to figure it out on your own later. We have men's groups. We have trainings for therapists and coaches, called the integrated training, which we're going to launch in the fall. And we have in-person trainings, retreats, where we get together for 3-4 days and just kind of put the world aside for a minute and slow down and get into these layers and spend time in these layers. The bonding that happens in these programs, especially at the in-person, it's all men. There's nothing like the power of just men sitting with other men and doing this kind of work with other men. Like, it cannot be overstated. It is incredibly powerful. These people, we become so closely bonded. You know, like I'm closer with people I have been to one retreat with than I am with like people that I've known for a super, super long time, just because of the depth that we're able to achieve in these settings. So come check us out. MELD, MELD, meld.community. We're going for it. So
congratulations, man. You guys are doing a lot of things, and it sounds like you're achieving some of those goals, man. So thanks for what you're doing with men. Definitely appreciate that. You can find Duncan on Instagram at meld.community on the web. Thanks again for being a part of the conversation, Duncan. Appreciate you, man.
Thank you so much for having me, man. It's been great. Thank you.
Same here, sir. For those that are watching and listening, thanks for making us part of your week. That's Duncan Rich. I'm Mr. U. Have a great day. Thanks for listening to the Men's Roundtable Series Interview Spotlight. You're watching too. Thanks for that.
Men's Roundtable Series, step inside. Real men, real faith, where the truths collide. Voices at the table where the stories get shared. Welcome to the Men's Roundtable, pull up a chair.